मैंने वो स्ट्रीमिंग शुरू कर ली हुई है। अब मेरे साथ आप बातें ना करें और वो अपना उसमें से ना मुझे निकाल दें। वो कहीं स्लाइड्स भी मैंने गलती जल्दी में शायद आगे पीछे कर दी है। स्लाइड भी ठीक नहीं चल रही। Yes, dear students, welcome back. As you know, these days we are studying the American government and democracy assistance in the Arab Gulf states. And here we discuss approach of the Bush administration. And as I told you before, the discussion is based on my PhD thesis. Its topic was the democratization in the Gulf countries, role of the Bush administration from 2000 to 2008. And let us discuss approach of the Bush administration, which the Bush government adopted for democracy promotion in the Middle East. And my focus in my thesis is on the Arab Gulf states. So under the Bush administration, radio stations also targeted the Gulf region, but still the US approach toward democracy in the Gulf stayed mostly covert, not open. It was covert. The approach was based on gradual change. The approach was peaceful. The central idea was to work at the grassroots level, to work with the people, to work with the masses in these countries. Colin Powell explained this idea at the launch of Middle East Policy Initiative MEPI. He said any plan for the Middle East that ignores political, economic, and educational underdevelopment will fail. He compared such a plan to building on sand. So, any building on sand is not durable, it is not strong, it cannot sustain. So, Colin Powell said if we want to promote democracy in the Middle East, in the Gulf countries, then we need to keep in mind the situation in those countries, the education and the culture, these things. Why grassroots approach made sense? Why the American government adopted the grassroots approach to promote democracy in this region? Some people in the region said democracy should not be imposed from outside. Democracy should rise from within the countries, within the states. Some people argued that democracy should not be imposed from outside. They said people will not accept it if it comes from abroad. People willingly accept something if it is homegrown. It comes from within the country. If something is imposed from outside, from abroad, people usually hesitate to accept it. They argued democracy must grow from within, so the people feel ownership. So if something is grown from within the country, people own it. They have a sense of ownership for it. These arguments mainly came from governments in the region. So governments of these countries actually they resisted the American demand to introduce democratic reforms. So governments in these Arab countries they argued that democracy should rise from within the countries. You should not impose it on us. But the Bush administration still considered them seriously. Although these arguments were made by the governments, even then the Bush government considered these arguments seriously. Ground reality supported a peaceful approach, a peaceful, slow approach. The US was already fighting two wars. One war was ongoing in Afghanistan, which started in 2001. The other was ongoing in Iraq. It started in 2003. Starting another war was unrealistic. So it was not realistic to start wars in other countries. Gulf regimes were friendly to the United States. They did not cause direct problems for the United States. The governments in the Gulf countries did not cause direct problems for the US. You know, the governments in Afghanistan and Iraq, they were not friendly to the United States. They were hostile. So America took military action against them. But the governments in the Gulf countries, they are friendly to the United States. So America did not want to take military action against them. Gulf oil flowed to the United States without interruption. Afghanistan and Iraq were not friendly. Use of force and its limits. The United States removed the Afghan and Iraqi regimes using force. The Afghan government was replaced, the Iraqi government was replaced, it was changed through war. The administration said this was necessary for US security. America said that these governments in Afghanistan and Iraq they were security threats for the United States. It also said the action helped liberate people from repressive governments. The military action against these governments helped liberate people from repressive governments. It was argued by Americans. But the motive of those invasions is not assumed to be democracy promotion. In the Gulf region, the United States used diplomatic efforts. Diplomatic efforts were used in the Gulf states for democracy assistance. Military was not used. The United States offered trade benefits and applied conditionalities on these states. Gulf regimes, the governments in the Gulf countries were encouraged to open their systems politically and economically. To open the system means to introduce reforms and to provide rights to people. The aim was to make these systems participatory and representative. To make these systems participatory and representative. Diplomacy and partisan partnerships. The United States worked with Gulf governments at the bilateral level. Coordinated diplomacy was a major channel for democracy promotion. The United States used public private partnerships to improve the impact of programs. Examples include Middle East and North Africa Business Women's Network, MENA. MENA Business Women's Network. MENA means stands for Middle East and North Africa. And Vital Voices. These were the networks which were utilized to support democracy in these countries. The administration encouraged American NGOs to work with local reformers. Individuals demanding human rights and reforms received support from the United States. There are individuals, there are some people in these countries who demand human rights from their governments, who ask their governments to reform the system. So the American government supported these people, these individuals in these countries. Tools identified by Levitsky and Way. Levitsky and Way are two scholars. They list many tools used by democracy promoters over time. In general, there are several tools which democracy promoters use. These tools include incentives for elites in developing countries, the countries where democracy promoters want to promote democracy. So they provide incentives. Incentive means to support them, to provide them benefits. Incentives for elites. Elites, ruling elites, power elites, the influential people in countries are called elites. Incentives for elites in developing countries, democracy assistance programs. Programs are also launched and they become tools for democracy promotion. Activities of transnational democracy networks. Transnational democracy networks, they are organizations, multinational organizations, or bilateral international organizations. So those networks also carry out activities to support democracy, to promote democracy, to facilitate democracy in different regions of the world. Diplomatic pressure, it is also a tool. The countries which promote democracy abroad, they sometimes use diplomatic pressure. Political conditionality, bilateral or multilateral. Sometimes they put conditionalities, conditions. For example, if they provide loan, they say if you reform your political system, we will provide you loan. If you don't do it, then we will not give you loan. Similarly, trade is also used for conditions. You can sell your things in our country, but in turn you will have to provide rights. You will have to introduce reforms in your country. So these are the different conditionalities. For example, European Union has provided GSP plus uh, package to Pakistan. Under this package, Pakistan sells goods in the European Union, but the European Union has put some conditionalities along with this in order to support and uphold human rights in Pakistan. And punitive sanctions, it is also a tool to promote democracy. Sometimes sanctions are put against other governments, other countries. And finally, military pressure or military intervention, it is also a tool, as America has several times uh, attacked militarily other countries on the pretext that America wants to promote democracy in this country, America wants to liberate people in this country. So these are the different tools which Levitsky and Way have enlisted in their research, which the democracy promoting countries use in various situations, various examples. The Bush administration used the first five tools in the Gulf. First five tools were used in the Arab Gulf countries. So let us have a look again at the first five tools. They include incentives for elites in in the Gulf countries, democracy assistance programs, activities of transnational democracy networks, diplomatic pressure, and political conditionalities. These first five tools were used by the United States in the Arab Gulf countries to facilitate democracy. The last two tools were not used. The last two tools are sanctions and military intervention. So these two tools were not used in the Arab Gulf countries by the America for democracy assistance. Use of soft power. The administration used soft power tools in the Arab Gulf countries for promoting democracy. These tools included persuasion to persuade someone, to ask them someone that if you do something this like this, it will be good. So please do it. So asking someone to convincing others, it is called persuasion. And shaming others that what you are doing is it is not good, it is bad. So you should be ashamed of it. So it is called shaming. These are also the tools, persuasion and shaming. These tools were also used earlier in Central and Eastern Europe. These tools were also used earlier in Central and Eastern Europe to facilitate democracy. The administration also used civic education and propaganda strategies. Civic education and propaganda strategies. These are also the tools which are used for democracy assistance in different countries. Other tools used by the United States include exchange programs. Exchange program means people from two countries visit each other's countries. For example, some Americans visited the Gulf countries, and some people from the Gulf countries, some citizens from the Gulf countries, they visit the United States. So it is called exchange programs. Exchange programs are also taking place between China and Pakistan and another with other countries. Public diplomacy. Public diplomacy means asking the people, talking to the people for something. It is public diplomacy. Training programs are also launched. They were launched by the Americans. Funds were provided and conditionalities were also put. Conditionalities were attached to the Middle East Free Trade Zone proposal. Middle East Trade Zone proposal. The conditionalities were attached to the trade, basically trade or economic things, and global US aid related to governance. Conditionalities were also attached to the global US aid related to governance. In 2002, the United States aid was increased by 50% after 9/11. 4.2 Departments, programs, and initiatives involved. The president gave direction to the whole administration. After that, many government bodies, departments, and organizations in the United States started working to assist democracy in the Middle East. They worked on making and carrying out the democracy promotion policy in the Gulf countries and other Middle Eastern states, various departments of the American government. The State Department played the biggest role. State Department, it is the Foreign Affairs Department. Just like in Pakistan, we have Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In the United States, it is called the State Department. Actually, it is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the United States. The State Department played the biggest role in assisting democracy in the Middle East and the Gulf countries. It worked at both stages. Making the policy was the first stage, and applying the policy or implementing the policy was the second stage. So the State Department worked at both stages of making the policy and applying the policy. Congress provided money for the programs. In different countries, the name of parliament is different. You know, the formal name of Pakistan's parliament is Majlis-e-Shura, and the formal name of American parliament is Congress. American Congress means American Parliament. The Congress provided money for the programs to facilitate democracy in the Middle East. Congress also provided the legal tools needed for the policy. Legal tool means laws. So the American Parliament, the American Congress also made laws which were needed for the policy of democracy assistance in the Middle East. The Congress also kept watching how the policy was being carried out. So the Congress also monitored how different departments of the American government were promoting democracy in the Middle East, in the Arab world. The two bureaus inside the State Department carried out the policy. Two bureau. Bureau means office or department. The Bureau of Near Eastern Affairs, it carried out the policy of democracy assistance, and the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor. It is also called DRL, Democracy, Rights and Labor, DRL. Congress approved the policies and funds for the Middle East Partnership Initiative, MEPI. Congress also approved the policies and funds for the Human Rights and Democracy Fund, HRDF. HRDF. HRDF gives money to the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor, DRL. MEPI gets its money from the Economic Support Fund. DRL also gives financial support to the National Endowment for Democracy, NED. Congress also passed the needed legal acts. So, American Parliament also made the laws which were required. One such act was the Advanced Democracy Act of 2007. Act means law. The law which has been approved by the parliament, it becomes an act. So act here means a law which has been made, which has been approved. uh, when a draft is presented in any parliament to be considered for a law, it is called a draft. It is also called a bill. Usually it's called a bill. When a bill is discussed in the parliament and then voting is held, and the bill is passed by the members of the parliament, then it becomes an act. It is called an act. So an act is a law which is approved, passed by the parliament. So, one such law was the Advanced Democracy Act of 2007, which the American Congress made. Another one was the 9/11 Commission International Implementation Act of 2007. It was another law which the American Parliament made in 2007. These acts encourage and help the Saudi government to bring reforms in many areas. So, in these laws, the American Parliament has asked the government of Saudi Arabia to introduce reforms in different areas of government. Under these laws, the United States gives financial help to governments that reform their educational systems. The United States gives financial help to governments that reform their educational systems. It is believed that the act helps address the root causes of religious extremism in Saudi Arabia. It is believed that this law helps address the root causes of religious extremism in Saudi Arabia. The act explains, the law explains why Congress believes its role is important. The act says, the law says that Saudi Arabia has very few political avenues for citizens. The act says this situation is a threat to United States security, world security, and even Saudi Arabia's own security. The act says, the law says Saudi Arabia must bring political and economic reforms. These include giving more political rights to citizens. These include increasing the rights of women. These include deep educational reforms. The act says the United States policy is to support Saudi Arabia in making political, economic, and social reforms. So, in this law, it is said the American policy is to support reforms in Saudi Arabia in politics, in economics, economy, and in society. So, Congress pushed Saudi Arabia to bring reforms in political, social, and economic areas. The Bush administration launched at least 14 programs and initiatives from 2000 to 2008. In this table, I have prepared the list of these programs which were launched by the American government from 2000 to 2008. Number one is Middle East and North Africa Business Women's Network, MENA Business Women's Network, MBN. It was launched in 2006. Number two is Broader Middle East and North Africa, BMENA. Number three, US Saudi Arabian Strategic Dialogue, SASRIS. US Saudi Arabian Strategic Dialogue, launched in 2005. The Middle East Partnership Initiative, MEPI, was launched in 2002. MEPI Alumni Network, 2002. Radio Sawa, 2002. Office of Global Communication, 2002, American Kuwaiti Alliance aka 2003, Middle East Free Trade Area MEFTA 2003, Foundation for the Future 2005, Fund for the Future 2005, Forum for the Future 2005, US Saudi Arabian Strategic Dialogue. Uh, its year is not here in this slide, but I have mentioned the year in my thesis. There's some problem in this slide. Bahrain Forum for Public Private Partnership. So these were the 14 programs, at least 14 programs, which were launched to promote democracy in this region. These programs helped democracy promotion in different ways. So I think we should stop here. It should be enough for today, so that you are not burdened with this. So I close YouTube and I join you back on Google Meet.